Welcome to week 5 of CALM 120, Interpersonal Communication. This week we will look at Chapter 5. Chapter 5 deals with the nature of language, the impact of language, gender and its relationship to language, and then last, social media and language. For this video segment, we'll just do the first two. That's the nature of language and the impact of language. Let's jump into it, the nature of language. So theorists tell us that language influences perception, that we see the world really through the filter of our words, that our language in some sense creates a reality. And so we will look at how this characteristic affects our day-to-day communication interpersonally, both personally with our friends and significant others, as well as professionally in the workplace. So the nature of language. There are a few characteristics. The first one is language is symbolic. The word and its referent have no relationship. For example, if I said dog, if I use the word dog, D-O-G, you would know what it means, but there's really no real relationship between the word and what it refers to. We could have used the word cat to refer to a dog, and we could have used the word dog to refer to a cat. This is a screwdriver. We could have called it a pencil. So there isn't a relationship between the word and its referent. Words are arbitrary symbols that have no meaning in and of themselves. Second, language is rule governed. The only reason why we can understand each other is because we have certain rules that people have agreed on over time in the English language, of course, on how to use them. So the first rule is phonological rules, and they govern how sounds are combined to form words and how to pronounce those words. The second one is syntactic rules, and this refers to to the order of words in a sentence. For example, I see the dog, whereas Yoda might say the dog I see. Now we know that the dog I see really doesn't make sense. We allow it for Yoda, but it's not the correct way. Sometimes something that's apparently ungrammatical, where the word order is all messed up, maybe due to somebody speaking English as a second language, because in their language, word order is a little bit more flexible. And there are lots of languages where word order is flexible. Semantic rules govern the meaning of the words themselves individually. And how do we know what the meaning of the words themselves are? We use a dictionary. Denotation meaning is a dictionary definition. Connotation meaning is the personalized meaning that we bring to the word. It brings an element of subjectivity to it. So semantic rules help us understand the meaning of individual words, but they don't help us. So we can look at a sentence and know the meaning of each individual word, but we don't understand what it means when we all put it together. Pragmatic rules help us to distinguish the accurate meanings of such speak acts. They help us tell us in terms of interpretation which are appropriate for its given context. So pragmatic rules are specific context related rules. So if I said I want to see you, it's likely to mean one thing when uttered by your boss to yourself, or maybe when you utter to a significant other. Those words will take different meanings depending on the context itself. So people in individual relationships create their own sets of pragmatic rules. You can look at that. Then language is subjective, and that is words do not contain meanings. Meanings are in people, right? There's a certain subjectivity to it. So if you look at that triangle between the symbol, the thought or reference, and between the symbol and the referent at the bottom of the triangle, there's a dotted line, because if I said dog, you could think of a variety of dogs. You know what the denotation is, but you might be thinking of a German Shepherd, and I might be thinking of a Chihuahua. So there's a broken line between the symbol and its referent, because language is certainly subjective. Meanings are in people, not in words. So very often we have to negotiate what the meaning of our language is with someone else, even someone who's speaking English. Language and worldview. And this goes back to the idea of linguistic relativity I spoke about earlier, at the very beginning of this segment. And that is, a language both shapes and reflects the worldview of those who use it. So we usually think of it reflecting, but we usually don't think of it as shaping the worldview of ourselves. So bilingual speakers, for example, seem to think differently when they change languages. So if you first language Spanish speaker and you speak English, there's a sense in which your reality is somewhat slightly changed versus you speaking Spanish now to a group of friends who are Spanish. So the other example, in Israel, both Muslim and Jewish students saw bigger distinction between their groups and outsiders when using their native language than when they spoke in English. So that idea of linguistic relativity is referred to as the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis and is credited to Benjamin Whorf. And he found out that the Hopi language makes no distinction between nouns and verbs. And so for them, the world is in constant flux. It's kind of like a movie. Whereas for us in English, we represent the world more like a collection of snapshots versus a movie. Interesting variation or difference between the two. So the potential impact of linguistic relativity on interpersonal communication is significant. So look at the difference between the two phrases. You make me angry, and I get angry with you. I get angry when you, forgive me. So you make me angry, and I get angry when you. The first phrase says to the other person, the anger is the other person's fault. It's what you did to me. The second is more of an I message that takes responsibility for your own actions and emotions. So changing your language can not only help reduce defensiveness in the other person, and here's the significant part, but it can also reframe how you see the situation. It reframes how you see the situation. So the words that you use can affect how you see the world, your perception of the world. We will stop here, and then the next segment we'll look at the impact of language.